Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Truth and Law. I am Conrad Rogas. This video is entitled, Are you a victim of violence or just overreacting? Now that's not my title because this video is a translation. This video is a translation of Anna Lachowska's video. Anna Lachowska is the founder of a foundation called PRZEMOCNIe Foundation, right? It's the Violence No Foundation, about ending violence. It's a self-help channel for victims of violence, and it's about empowerment through knowledge and through self-work. So a lot of the things I stand for. On my channel I talk about violence and psychology, but I talk about it on a worldview basis and a philosophy level and mass behaviors. Anna Lachowska, she talks about violence and psychology mainly on a personal basis, about healing, self-defense, and so forth. And she's classically trained, she has experience in psychology and helping people, right? I'm just a regular guy, right? But that's one of the reasons I decided to translate this video, mainly because there are so many profound statements in this video that apply to my material and what I talk about. And it is such a good analysis of the mindset of an abuser. Right, so it is called, Are you a victim of violence or just overreacting? Now, the background of the video is one of her clients is explaining her situation to Anna, and she's asking if she really is a victim of violence or if she's just overreacting and, this is a complicated relationship and so forth. So that is the topic of the video, and I use the word abuser because the word doesn't exactly translate to Polish, right? In Polish, it comes across more as initiator or like a committer of violence. So, but I use the word abuser because I think that's the best English word to translate it into. It's going to occur over and over again. But just know that when you hear the word abuser in this, it's someone who initiates harm. And I talk about people who initiate harm a lot in my material, so it's very parallel, right? And this is not the entire video. I'll link the video in the description. You could view it, but it's going to be the bulk of it. Okay, the part that's important, I cut out some of the beginning and the end where they talk, personally, because it's about the message in it. So I'll begin the reading, and then after I finish the reading, I'll go back to some of the things I wrote down and just expand more from my perspective about the world, and we'll go further. But to begin the reading, victims of violence are unsure of what is happening to them. Psychological abuse is based primarily on psychological enslavement, a significant transgression of boundaries, and maintaining the victim in thinking that the transgression of boundaries is normal, rightful, desirable, and good for them. Psychological violence is rarely open aggression, rarely open degradation and demeaning someone outright. Why? Because the less subtle something is, the easier it is to define, notice, and the easier it is for us to rebel against. And good, meaning effective psychological violence, will not immediately degrade a person at the snap of a finger, because that person would just tell them, hasta la vista. They will leave. And that'll be the end of the violator's gain, a mere memory of their victim to be. Real psychological violence is a wolf in sheep's clothing. It is harm given as medicine, in the form of a solution, care, love, interest. Only then it will be effective. Because the goal of psychological violence is the conquering, the overthrowing of your mind by another person. And yes, this can be done very invasively, for example, by kidnapping someone, arresting them, torturing them, in order to create a Stockholm syndrome. Only those things are illegal, or are legal only for various semi-legitimate government agencies. So not everyone can just kidnap someone and abuse them to create Stockholm syndrome. After all, not every abuser is aware that he is an abuser and what he wants to do. Usually abusers are convinced that they are doing good because they have an internal mess, personal issues, and they simply cannot differentiate whether what they're doing is right or wrong. They think it is normal, that that's the way it's done, and that if they don't do it to you, then you will do it to them. These are individuals who live in a very sad universe in which everyone hates each other, everyone fights for dominance, and only one side wins. And that there's no such thing as a win-win relationship. For these unhappy people, these abusers, a relationship is a constant tug of war. Social relations are a perpetual push-pull, and this is why violators employ methods that are, in according to them, the most applicable, most effective, and they don't think that they're employing the most effective violence. They think they're employing the most effective methods of cultivating human relationships. And the most effective methods of cultivating human relationships are those in which that they cannot be accused of anything, right? So they have to be white-gloved. So real psychological violence is when someone rules your mind and you are not even sure if he does. That's when it's effective. If someone's telling you hurtful things, if someone quickly sets limits for you, if someone even cusses you out in response to something, that's not psychological abuse. At most, it's verbal aggression, not psychological violence. Of course, somewhere down the line, in very advanced psychological abuse, verbal aggression happens, appears, and is a common tool. But that is not the same thing. Verbal aggression can be a tool for subordination or a tool for setting boundaries. It can be evidence of rudeness or evidence of assertiveness. This is only a tool, like a knife. It can be used for this, it could be used for that, making a sandwich, killing someone, sharpening, carving. So, psychological abuse is an entire set of warlike behaviors serving the purpose of conquering the land of another, the mind of another, and conquering another being. And thus, for the person being conquered, it will always be unclear, because conquering by physical or verbal aggression is so obvious that there will be rebellion. So it's easier, better, more effective to conquer through boiling the frog, little by little, making it so that the conquered person does not know if something bad is happening or not. And this mental mess that the abuser creates is another exceptional tool of exerting influence. So if you have doubts whether or not you are a victim of violence, you most likely are. So then she reads the message from a client. She just had her child, right? Her husband returns late at night. She's tired, and the husband makes a big deal about how important sex is to a marriage because he wants to have sex and she's tired and they don't, right? So now back to the reading. Anna responds to her. Physical tiredness. 2 months after birth, she also feels alone and unloved. The abuser can see every harm, his and yours, seeing them both as his. Meaning if you don't want to, then you probably don't love him anymore. You can feel the same. If he's not helping you with the child, not understanding that you're in pain, that you're tired, that you just want to cuddle and sleep, or that the biggest aphrodisiac would be him giving the child a bath that evening. But does he do this? He does not do this, then you feel unloved. But he will immediately turn that into an accusation, that if you feel unloved, then you won't love him. So the abuser completely throws out your problem, only his remains, meaning that you don't love him anymore. Irrelevant that he is giving you a reason to feel unloved or to stop loving him, only the effect is relevant, that you are displaying something that could be interpreted as a lack of love. We see here a complete lack of empathy. I hate that word, but let's roll with it. The empathy, right? Compassion, understanding, just basic respect for the partner's situation. A 2-month-old is a little creature who, since being born, engages 24 hours a day the mother, and in normal societies also the grandmother, aunt, father, and also other siblings if there are any. That is a little creature that needs attention and action, and that little creature for the previous 9 months was already taking a toll on the mother's physiology, so she's actually very tired. If a man cannot see the pain and fatigue of his partner, then that means he is completely inattentive of her. What woman would want to engage in the most intimate contact with a man who is completely inattentive to her? Everything, to her everything. Unaware of her pain, her fatigue, her frustration, loneliness. If she actually were to agree to sex under those circumstances, then she most likely would start crying in the middle of it. So then she talks more about casual sex as opposed to emotional intimacy, caring for the common creation, the child, talking about if such a lecture is applicable. So is it psychological violence or not? And Anna says it could be an expression of helplessness, lack of knowledge, lack of ability, powerlessness. Either way, the result will not be good. Okay, let's go on. The client also mentions that she wants to see a psychologist, right? But he did not accept it. He basically, her partner said, "What do you mean? Why? For what? I could help you better." Now, back to the reading. And this is a red flag, massive red flag. What does that even mean, that he did not accept that you wanted to visit a psychologist? What if you wanted to go to a different kind of doctor? Would he still help you better? Would he still not accept it? Or what if your car broke down and you wanted to see a mechanic? Would he not accept that? Would he fix the car for you? Will he treat your cancer more effectively? This is obvious what it means that he did not accept it. He didn't accept that you will have a person that you will be talking to about the fact that you're a victim of violence. And that means he knows what he's doing. Because if he thought that a psychologist wasn't a threat to him, then he would have no problem accepting him. This means, in a healthy relationship, if one person wants to see a psychologist, the other asks why and wants to understand, because his partner has a problem that they want to discuss with a specialist, right? What happened? Do you want to tell me about it? What do you want to resolve? Do you want to tell me what you want to resolve? What you want to discuss? Do you even want to tell me? Right? Because in a relationship, we are two independent individuals, two separate minds. So if one of us wants to see a mind mechanic, then the other doesn't get involved in that. The other doesn't express approval or denial. They can express interest. That would be nice, that they show interest. But not to evaluate it or approve of it, but to be closer, to understand. So the entire idea of expressing or not expressing acceptance of you going to a psychologist is violence. Yes, that is violence. Meaning someone is making a problem out of the fact that you need to handle something in your head. This means things are bad. This means that he knows that if you organize your mind, then you will see him. And then abusers do this. Cut off from psychologists, cut off from friends, from everyone close who can help you see clearly. No one has the right to express approval or denial of you going to a psychologist. So if someone is expressing a lack of acceptance, that means he has something behind his ears, that he knows, that a psychologist will help you unpack things into causal factors, discern, understand, and thus rebel. How? For what? He can help you better. A mentally healthy person is a person that can correctly evaluate boundaries. Correct evaluation of boundaries, healthy evaluation of boundaries, is also evaluation of roles. And a partner who is healthy does not want to be your therapist, because he will want to be your equal. A life partner is a lover, a friend, or business partner. There's no room here for a therapist. A therapist is someone detached who will help you organize your mind from beside you, not from the inside. So if someone refuses to accept that you're going to see a psychologist or says he can help you better, that means he is afraid that your mind will get organized, because he is organizing it as he sees fit. And he will make sure that no one interferes with this or gets involved, because he will do it for you. This is absolutely a red flag. And if someone thinks that they can help you more than a specialist can, of course, there are bad specialists out there, but that's not for this video. If he thinks he can help you better than a psychologist can, then that means he is uppish, he does not respect specialists, he does not respect other people, and has an inordinately high self-image. To give more examples, for example, you are left with no friends. I didn't have many, but there was something wrong with every single one of them. Her client said this. And she replies, this is the same thing. Isolating you from your support system. This is a typical strategy of psychological violence. There was nothing wrong with them. They were dangerous to him. Because they would have told you, hey, he doesn't love you, he doesn't respect you, he's using you, he's limiting you. Those close people and friends are the first to go, right in the beginning. The only ones who can remain are those who will keep you in the conviction that the pathology that is occurring in your relationship is good, and anyone who can get you out of that violence is bad. This is a typical characteristic. This always happens in every abusive relationship. Your partner will separate you from the strongest group of support. Then her client says, acquaintances of the male kind are ruled out automatically. Back to the reading. This is approaching paranoia, Othello syndrome, pathological jealousy. Often alcoholics have this. People with borderline personality disorder. This also is common among abusers, meaning they are so obsessed with the idea that you will leave them that they see betrayal where there is none. And most of all, see, if you become a victim of violence, then that means you can be manipulated. So if you can be manipulated, then another man can manipulate you and steal you away. So if a partner respects his woman, he knows that she cannot be manipulated, and therefore is not jealous of other men in the sense that they are a threat by default. This man that respects himself, respects his partner, can be jealous of men who can actually attract you and surpass him in some way. That's life, and that's human nature. Humans are serially monogamous, and we change partners. And yes, that could occur where we like someone else and we will fall in love with someone else. But if a man has full respect for his partner, then he knows that she could only be won over by a man who is her type, her taste, meets her requirements, comparable to him. But a man who is not self-confident and manipulative, the one who knows that he manipulated his partner, and that's the reason she's with him, will be afraid of every man, every other man. Because it's not about what type of man it is, but what sort of manipulation skills he has. And manipulation is an ability that animals have, that children have. Really, there's not much of the self that one must present to manipulate a person. Her client says, like as if I don't know who to choose to keep around me. She responds, he knows very well that you can actually choose your company well. And I assure you, if he would only see a fragment of my videos, especially this one, then he would immediately say she's crazy. What the hell is she talking about? That lady is nuts. I've heard this many times from my clients who have had so much faith in their abusers that they showed him me. And it was always the same response, the same set of responses, that I'm crazy, that I'm a terrible woman, that I'm aggressive. Yes, just like your set of friends. You just don't know how to choose a person to learn from. He will choose for you himself. So if someone is discredited by an abuser, this means that they are a threat to him and he knows it. Maybe they will lead you to light, to truth, to reason, to freedom, to find yourself. Her client says that everything they have is theirs together, right? And then Anna talks about shared property and that kind of desire for complete unity, to have everything together. Back to the reading. Under the pretext of deep love and unity, it is easy to smuggle control. And if you are saying everything we have is shared, we use everything together, this means that you have noticed it and it is not desirable. This means that you are not allowed to own any property. So her client then talks about him checking her phone, making a situation about who's texting what to her. She replies, in a relationship between two people, their private correspondences are not monitored, and even if it is seen, it does not result in a fight. And if it is monitored, then that means he is determining your rights of who to talk to and who you can't, and what you are and are not allowed to talk about. This means he is making out of you a slave, a subject, property, a child, a victim. He is taking your freedom. And it does not matter how it is justified. He is taking your freedom. So her client talks about him lecturing her about values and what's important in life. So back to the reading. He is constantly suggesting that you should follow him because you're dumb and he's smart. This is of course one of the qualities, yes, narcissistic and moderately effective methods of maintaining an advantage over someone. This means it's possible to force a partner in an abusive relationship into a position where they accept everything they're told. And I work with people sometimes who have 90% of their mindset, worldview, and knowledge are implanted in them by their abuser. And they very, very easily leave this once they are in some sort of therapeutic program. However, very often, this is very embarrassing for the victim. The victim sees that those lectures have no value. They're stupid, they're laughable, nonsensical, and they do not want to submit to them. And the abuser does not see this, because he does not even see the possibility that there is something beyond his game, beyond this competition for advantage. Because like I said, an abusive relationship from the perspective of the abuser is a fight for dominance. Because in his mind, relationships are fights for domination, and either he will dominate or you will. And if you will dominate, then he will be hurt. And where does this come from? Of course, growing up in a dysfunctional home. This means in a pathological home. In dysfunctional families is where there is a struggle for dominance. And love is identified with domination, and respect is identified with domination. And generally, dominance is presented as the definition of all important words and values. Where does this come from? From the fact that dysfunctional homes are created by immature adults. And the dynamic between the child and the world is based on testing boundaries of roles, meaning domination. Meaning, a child cannot do much. A child sees surrounding him adults that can do more. A child knows that they will become adults and then they will be able to do more. So a child at every stage of maturation tests how much they can do, how much they can get away with, how much they're able to achieve. And throughout, this is a dynamic of a weaker, dependent person and a stronger person, a stronger system, a stronger environment, stronger adults. And if the family did not allow the child to constructively go through all the aspects of maturing, the effect is an adult grows up who is fighting for dominance at work, fighting for dominance with his friends, fighting for dominance in a relationship, and in parenting. We have this typical image of men drinking beer, where on one hand they are bragging about the big fish they caught, and on the other hand they discredit what their friend says. This is very typical. And this is the precise result of that immaturity. That is a civilizational problem. From this we get abusers. It's not that these people are spawns of hell, or everyone has a personality disorder, or everyone is evil down to the bone. No. They are immature children of immature parents, and they're fighting for dominance. So in the next example, her client says that she wants to go in the park and run, but he doesn't understand why, but he has to go to the gym because of course he does, because men have to, right? She goes on to say, same thing with other people. It's better to avoid men entirely. He obsesses that she is trying to look good for other people. He lectures her about what a woman is supposed to do. And he also says that she shouldn't be spending her time painting because one of her hobbies is painting. But he, of course, denies that he's not allowing her to do those things. She says, oh, you could do whatever you want. So here's Anna's response. Domination, domination, domination. This is a sort of fearful domination, a very borderline kind, because borderline is a fear of abandonment by the mother, by the object, meaning a close person. In life, the first object in everyone's life is the mother. At the point in a person's life when they should be resolving the problems of the borderline stage, their life is dependent on the mother. So if she does not provide for our needs, this means she is unavailable. When we want a hug, when we are hungry, when we are cold, when we need our diaper change. And if she is unavailable at the first signal, the child begins to cry. And usually the mother comes, and a bad mother does not. And the borderline problem will be resolved, or will become entangled, ingrained, to varying degrees of intensity, depending on the mother, but also the child. his predispositions, what his temperament is, how he resolves problems, what is his psychological and emotional immunity, neural, and so on. And in an ideal scenario, a natural one, is one when a child begins to look around, become more alert, and then the mother should react, recognize that he needs something and attend to him, or pick him up, or await a more intense or clear signal, or check what he needs. This is in small children, up to 6 months old. And for the child, that motherly response indicates life, meaning the child will not be able to do anything. The child is too little to deal with anything. And if the mother is responding to his first signals, this means he can be at ease. This means he's loved. This means he won't die. If the mother forces the child to scream in order for her to meet his needs, she is shaping fear inside him because he lacks this sense of safety in the world. This new age bullshit about abundance and abundance mindset, access to abundance, about being open to abundance, is partially new age bullshit and partially freeing yourself from the borderline mindset, meaning this abundance is everything that comes to you, meaning all of the good things you have access to. To survive, you need access to food, shelter, social inclusion, and so on. And this is shaped when you are that little child, that newborn, and the mother is reacting to your first signals. Then you have that feeling of abundance satisfied. You have that assurance. You enter the world, and from the stage that you realize you are not the entirety of the world, you start to fathom that you are not the world but just a part of it, some separate being. That mother is meeting your needs. You are just beginning to recognize that the mother is a separate object, that there is a outside world, that is a separate object. In the very beginning, the child thinks that they are the entire world, and already he has needs that are not met. And this is a person who will always be in some sort of fear regarding his survival, his primal needs. And this is the lack of abundance mindset in that spiritual blabbering. And if the mother is forcing you to cry for her to pay attention to you, then there is no abundance. So you have to fall into sadness and sorrow and frenzy in order to get something that you need in order to survive. And it could be even worse, because it may turn out that you are not provided for despite the frenzy. And this is a total tragedy. And abusers didn't have mothers who responded to their first signals. Look at the predicament of a newborn. It's very difficult. They are unable to say what they want. Not only unable to obtain it, unable to speak what they want. The mother has to be attentive to the point that she can infer it. Only then the child will feel safe, meaning loved. For such a small child, safe, well-fed means loved. He does not have higher complex emotions. Then her client also says he asks her about conversations with family, seemingly suspicious that like others are giving advice against him. And she writes at the same time that even as she's writing this, she has feelings of guilt, feeling bad for him or feeling guilty. So Anna's response: and this is exactly the conquering of the domain of another, the mind of another. He no longer has to do much. You already feel guilty, meaning he was able to inject his mindset. He already injected what you're supposed to think in order to benefit him. And benefiting him means his domination. So you yourself are an agent of his agenda, not your own. Why must it be that way? Your agenda and his agenda? Because he thinks that a relationship is a struggle for domination, not mutual sharing, support, growth, but a fight for dominance. And if it's a fight for dominance, then all parties have their own interest, their own agenda, and they are opposed to each other. He introduced that dynamic. If one person introduces war into your life, then you don't have a choice. You're at war. It's not that the truth is always somewhere in the middle. No, you could have the purest intentions. If the other person has bad intentions, then he will bring you down to the level of his bad intentions. Meaning, if he feels like he's at war, then he will make sure you're at war too. Her client says that she says that he's generally a good person, and that's what he convinces everyone of. he'll be like, he'll say he needs her support and he will be the one to move mountains for us, On one hand, he claims he's perfect, but during arguments, he'll say he's the worst. He'll be self-deprecating. So she writes that sometimes she feels bad because he says sometimes that he doesn't deserve anything, real low. And she concludes by saying that she doesn't know what to do because he's not all bad, and she's not even sure what kind of a person he is. So generally, she's just asking Anna's opinion and if things will get worse. So here's her opinion. How would I evaluate it? You are with a person with strong borderline traits, meaning very emotionally immature, with enormous emotional deficits. I can't evaluate whether he is a good person or not, because those aren't even the proper categories. A person can be good or bad if they are mature, but a person who is so immature that he treats you like an object, meaning complete and total sacrifice, demands from you what a newborn demands from the mother. Focus, satisfying his physical and psychological needs. This is a requirement of unconditional love. So that which a newborn requires from his mother, or else he will die. And this person carries that condition of unfulfillment with him his entire life. And he will bring you flowers and do all this stuff for you because he loves you, yes. But he loves you like a baby in the skin of a man. So he will provide, he will bring money, but he will demand in return what a child does from his mother, so that you don't have a life, and there will be only him. Only him. Because a mom of a 6-month-old infant doesn't have a life. She has a child only. She has to sacrifice herself for the child entirely. And if his mother didn't do that, then he will require his partner to do that. And your child will suffer too as a result, because the child will be a competitor and a threat to him. Meaning what? Precisely, after childbirth, you're supposed to be having sex, because you're supposed to satisfy his physical and psychological needs. And it's irrelevant that if you're in a stage where you're supposed to be meeting the physical and psychological needs of your child, he is unable to create an environment where the child is the priority because he's the priority. Because he feels like he's dying. He's dying when you have something in your life other than him. And that concludes the reading. I'm just going to have a drink really quick so I could talk about it from my own perspective. My apologies. So I'm going to go to the top of the reading. I underlined some things, but as I was reading, I realized there are some things I didn't underline that I want to talk about. Now, I didn't talk about this during the reading because I don't want to misrepresent Miss Lachowska's worldview or anything like that, right? Because I talk about government being immoral. Government is immoral, and all these things that the initiators of harm being in these institutions of power, right? So I'm going to talk about these golden sentences that I heard and I was like, wow, okay? So right at the beginning, psychological abuse is based primarily on psychological enslavement. So that's what this is all about. It's psychological enslavement. I love the language. It is not sugarcoating it. It is enslavement, okay? Those are these worldviews that we are stuck in, okay? Us thinking that is a good thing, and real psychological violence is a wolf in sheep's clothing, and that it is harm given as medicine, and that is what we have. That is the systems we have. We think that, the inspectors, the government, the police, that this is all for our own good. It's all given for safety and for health. That is the sheep's clothing, but it is a wolf. It is not care, love, interest. The social contract isn't about doing anything good for us. Social programs aren't about taking care of us, right? It's psychological violence. And the goal of psychological violence is the conquering and overthrowing of your mind by another person. And this is what the dark occult does. This is exactly what it is. She said something very interesting, that the abusers cannot differentiate whether they're doing is right or wrong. So not all of them are sadists, not all of them are psychopaths. They don't know what's right and wrong, so they think they're doing something good. And we often forget this, because I talk about us, the people, not knowing what right and wrong is. I talk about moral relativism being a huge problem, being the killer of free will. But the abusers are also stuck in this. They also don't know what right and wrong is. So they also need to be taught. They need to be helped. And more along the lines of them being helped, she says, these are individuals who live in a very sad universe, in which one where everyone hates each other, everyone fights for dominance, and only one side wins. And that underlines it. They're very scared people, the people in the police and military who go and violate other people's rights. They're very fearful, because they live in a world where it's all about dominance. This is a very animalistic, a reptilian mindset, and that is the fear they're constantly in. So it's not that I'm looking down at cops like, you guys are trash. I say things like that because I talk about the objective effects of their behaviors. But on a heart level, these people need our help, because they are abused, of course, and they are in this very fearful mindset. They need to be empowered. They do need some sort of empowerment and reassurance and love to get them out of that mindset. Now, they also need a healthy dose of self-defense and assertion of aggression, as Anna Lachowska says in this. She says that verbal aggression can be putting somebody down, or it could be asserting your rights. That's exactly what it is. And same thing with physical aggression. Now, where were we? Let's continue. Talked about the assertiveness. So psychological abuse is an entire set of warlike behaviors serving the purpose of conquering the land of another, the mind of another, conquering another being, and that is this domination. That is why rape exists, because rape is an act it's not just based in the sexual exchange. It's based in the complete domination. It's based in taking somebody's soul and fighting spirit. See? That's what these abusers are doing. They want to conquer completely. Now, it is based in fear, and they are scared, but on that level, they do behave like sadists. So there's a point where the compassion has to stop, and we have to look at a monster and fight back. Okay? Further in the reading, about the seeing a psychologist and not accepting it. So if someone is expressing a lack of acceptance, then that means he has something behind his ears, meaning he's planning something, or like he knows something. That a psychologist will help you unpack things into causal factors, discern, understand, and thus rebel. So she said psychologist in the situation that she wanted to go to. Now, someone who will help you unpack things into causal factors, discern, understand, and thus rebel. Now, for all of humanity that's just living their normal life and don't even know that they are enslaved, that they are victims of psychological violence, do you know who that psychologist is? Who will help you rebel? That's people like me. And not just me. There are other people talking about this, right? But you have a psychologist for how to deal with that one-on-one psychological abuse, right? In the world sense, you have people making podcasts, okay? I'm one of those people that could help you unpack things into causal factors. Mark Passio can help you do that. Vinny Eastwood can help you do that. Max Egan can help you do that. You know, there are many. I just want to be careful about who I'm talking about. You know, Michael Tessarion can help you do that. David Icke can help you do that. Yeah, not gonna go any further. A mentally healthy person is a person that can correctly evaluate boundaries. I completely agree with that. That is brilliant. Now, in the world sense, what is a correct evaluation of boundaries? Here it is. My body is my property. Where I live is my property. Those are the boundaries. Don't fuck with that. And I'm just a mentally healthy person. I'm not extreme for being an anarchist. I'm just somebody who's correctly evaluated the boundaries. The boundaries are, nobody can take my money. Nobody can take the money I make. Now, I'll donate. If we need to help the sick people and save the animals, I'm willing to donate my money. But you are not going to reach into my pocket. You're not going to take money from my check. I'm not going to allow it to happen. That is a correct evaluation of boundaries. Okay? And it also is, you don't do that to somebody else. So, yeah, I have those boundaries, but I also will not cross somebody else's boundaries. And if those boundaries are crossed, then it's time for aggression. That is a correct evaluation. Another profound statement. Under the pretext of deep love and unity, it is easy to smuggle control. And this is exactly what it is. It's all about helping others. This is what they say it's all about. It's about helping others. We're all in this together, diversity and everything. But under those nice sounding things, those general good concepts, it's easy to smuggle control. Okay? Same thing one-on-one, same thing with the world. And she says that this is coming from in the context of they basically have everything together, so she doesn't have stuff of her own. And Anna Lachowska points it out. This means that you are not allowed to own any property. And if you are not allowed to own any property, what are you? A slave. And she says that a couple seconds later. This means that he is making out of you a slave, a subject, property, a child, a victim. He is taking your freedom, and it does not matter how it is justified, he is taking your freedom. That's your property. So if you're not allowed to own guns, they're taking your freedom, they're taking your property, they're making you a slave. If you can't keep 100% of your check, of your payment, if you can't keep 100% of what you made, you're a slave. That's how it goes with taxes. Then she says later, I work with people sometimes who have 90% of their mindset, worldview, and knowledge that are implanted in them by their abuser. So they have their abuser's mindset. And this is what we have. Our abusers, and I don't mean the military and police, I mean the top level think tank, social engineers, dark occultists, their mindset is Satanism. And what's Satanism about? It's about domination. It's about moral relativism, which means that you decide what right and wrong is. It's about self-preservation, right? Only survival matters. And it's about only the strong survive. That's Satanism. And most people believe this. And we are those 90, I'd say in society it's high, it's 99%. We have our abuser's mindset. And we have to come out of it. It's actually easy once you begin, like she says. She says that once you're in that therapeutic process, that her client, the people actually laugh at what they used to believe. That's where I am. It's really easy once you begin, but you need to take a good look, open your eyes to the violence that we are all in. She says, what creates these abusers, right? A pathological home in dysfunctional families is where there is a struggle for dominance. And that is the root. The root is that internal psychological trauma coming from growing up in families where there was a struggle for dominance. And there was arguing, and there was fighting, and there was unhealthy, there was domination. Dysfunctional homes are created by immature adults. It's all about immaturity. That is the reason we live in a world of slavery, because we don't want to take personal responsibility, because you would also need to take on the personal responsibility, if something happens and you need to deal with somebody outside, you can't call anybody to pick them up. If you see problems, life's problems are happening uh, in your presence, you can't just say somebody else is going to handle it. You're going to have to handle it. That's personal responsibility. That takes courage to do that. It takes maturity to do that. And abusers don't have that. They also don't want to take the responsibility to follow their conscience and not orders. That's why these cops or these so-called, soldiers are going to say, well, I'm just following my orders, because they're children. They don't want to take the responsibility to make their own decisions. And what makes them, she says, it's not that these people are spawns of hell, or that everyone has a personality disorder, or everyone is evil down to the bone. No, they are immature children of immature parents, and they're fighting for dominance. Another brilliant point. It's not human nature. It's not that these people were born evil. They're ill. They have a mental illness. They were abused, and they have become abusers. It's all by the conditioning and the societal messaging. And that's why we need to change the conditioning and societal messaging. It's a good tool for societal messaging. It's one of these microphones, and also these things called cameras. And if you have this thing called the internet, you could do a whole lot of societal messaging to speak the truth to people. You don't have to get everything out at once, Well, just wanted to throw that in there as well. Let's see if there's something else. Oh yeah. She points out that at some point you become an agent of his agenda and not your own. And there are a whole lot of people who do this. They just repeat the narratives. They repeat the different agendas, and they think that that's their agenda. And it really isn't. They're just siding with the abusers. They're saying, we need the police. We need the taxes. They're saying this stuff. But I'll move on from that. Another brilliant one. If one person introduces war into your life, then you don't have a choice. You're at war. It's not that truth is somewhere in between. You could have the purest intentions, but if he'll take you to the level of the bad intentions. Meaning, if he feels like he's at war, then you're at war. And that is my message to everybody. You are at war. Now, you want to be peaceful? You want to say law of attraction? I only want to create positive energy in my life? No. You're at war. I'm at war. Now, I'm lucky because I'm okay with being at war. This was always my calling. But I know there are people who don't deserve this. They don't deserve to sacrifice their life to try to really oppose this slavery system. But they declared war on us. They are everywhere. They are in your living room. They are taking everything, right? I'm just going to give a quick example, so I'm not just talking in generalities. I don't know how it is in Poland, but in the United States we have fluoride in the water. Sodium fluoride. Sodium fluoride was put in the concentration camp water by Adolf Hitler, and it is known as not only a neurotoxin, but the main ingredient in rat poisons. Now, that's not conspiracy theory. That's what sodium fluoride is. Or I don't care if it's hexafluorosilicic acid. That fluoride's in the water, and nobody can explain to me why. So, it's war. I hope she doesn't make me take this video down. But she's just so brilliant. This was brilliant, and that's how you know a person has the correct worldview, because these are things that took me so long to research, and she just encapsulated it perfectly, helping one person free themselves from one abuser. And all of these big picture societal things completely apply to these situations, and you can apply them in your daily life, because chances are you have a psychological abuser in your life. And if you don't, then you could look at the one we all have as a collective. And then one sentence I wanted to underline is the last one, the one I concluded with. He's dying when you have something in your life other than him. Talking about the abuser. He feels like he's dying when there's someone else. Not even another man. Not even just a family member, but even a hobby. Even something that makes you happy. This abuser is such a parasite that he feels like he's dying when you have something in your life other than him. And this is what government is. They're strong in the sense that they have a gigantic web of control, and I don't just mean the government that's on the flag. I'm talking about the system of slavery, human slavery, which has been always the system. It used to be, religious control, super orthodox, inquisition-like religion. I'm talking about government as the idea that there's a human authority that can control people and should control their mind to make them think that they're slaves. They're strong, they've been strong, but in this sense they're weak because they need us. We don't need them. They can't work, they can't do anything by themselves. They are still those immature children that are afraid of the mother abandoning them. We are their mother, but it has become a relationship where they are going to kill the host, right? So they need us. So that's why they will fight us to the death. And that's what it's going to be, because it's going to be the death anyway. That's kind of dark, but I think I should end it there, because not every abuser is going to have to dealt with through being killed. I understand that. I think we should approach the problems in our world from the standpoint of healing ourselves first, getting more knowledge, healing the abusers as well. Like, they need to be healed with truth. We need to tell the police that you are doing wrong, but I care for you. I see you. I want you to be better. We need to say to these people that support government institutions and even like banks and federal agencies and things like that, we need to tell them, I'm going to cut you off, but not because I hate you, because I love you so much that you need to change yourself to be who you really can be, and then I will be in your life again. We need to do that to family members even. That is the next step. That is a step. And then if there is no response at all, yes, physical aggression. So thank you very much to Anna Lachowska. Thank you for the video, for the great information. If you would want, please support the foundation, because this is a person that knows what they're talking about, and they're helping people that really need help. So that was are you a victim of violence or just overreacting? Well, I'm not overreacting. I am a victim of slavery in this world, and my heart goes out to all of the victims of violence, like the for real hardcore violence, the women and children especially. So as my final farewell, once again, thank you for viewing the video.